sports, and we got 30 minutes. We'll do a greatest hits version this morning. How about that? So it's good to see everybody on the field last night, except for the Yankees, Nationals. Everybody now has played a game, and there's a lot to talk about, and a lot to talk about in fantasy for today. And so I want to take a brief look back at some of the highlights of last night. How about Matt Olson? Yeah, we know the Oakland A's are going to be able to put together a great team this year. We talked about that. Chappie and I have talked about, oh, by the way, I just saw a minute ago, Chappie's coming on at 11:30, so a lot of great baseball content before first pitch today at 1:05 between the Cubbies and the Brewers. That ought to be a great one. We're going to touch on that just a little bit, not a whole lot. But last night's action was fantastic, and a lot of prophecies came true. Matt Olson, first of all, extra innings in Oakland, bases loaded, and he says enough of this. We're going home. He hits a walk-off grand slam, and Oakland wins 7-3 over the Angels last night. That was the last game, and I tell you what, for us East Coasters, a little bit on the long of tooth of scheduling yesterday. It was afternoon baseball, evening baseball, late night baseball. It was awesome. Who loved it as much as I did? I don't know if anybody could. And so a lot to talk about. The Dodgers and the Giants. I think a few things are abundantly clear, and it goes along the lines of what we have talked about on the network. The Giants, number one, are not very good. In fact, they are bad. Okay, Seattle, not very good. In fact, they are bad. And did you catch the score of that Oriole-Red Sox game? Third, very bad. And so when you're lining up, this doesn't take a rocket scientist, does it? When you're lining up daily fantasy, give me pitchers who are going up against the Orioles. Yes, the Orioles. Second, the Giants. And third, the Mariners. And it just so happens this weekend it's the Dodgers and the Giants. I'm talking about the mighty and the lowly. Then you've got the Mariners playing the Astros. Yeah. And, the Marlins just don't fall into that category. Did you catch any of the Marlin game last night? Alcantara, and I told you this earlier in the week on a show. When a manager or a coach speaks, it's time to listen. And Don Mattingly said earlier in the week that Alcantara was as good as anyone. Yeah, and he repeated it. He's as good as anyone. And last night, he goes 6 1/3 against the Phillies in Philadelphia, no doubt. Against Aaron Nola, toe-to-toe, gets the win. Gave up 2 runs, only 1 was earned. So, Sandy Alcantara may be available in leagues. I tell you what, this coming week he pitches against the Orioles. So I'm all over me some Sandy Alcantara. Again, Mattingly said it. I believe it. Let's look at some fantasy for today. Now, Rich Hill, scheduled to pitch for the Twins, yet he's not. He's not going to be pitching today. His start has been moved back to Wednesday of next week. Frankly, I think it's because they're playing the White Sox. The White Sox are loaded. Last night it was Giolito, and he looked horrible. Going against Jose Barrios for the Twins, and he looked horrible. Both teams were hitting. It was 5-5 in the 4th inning. And I've been saying this for a few years. For you guys who are stocking up on Jose Barrios in fantasy, end your fantasy because he's not that good. I think Barrios is one of the most overhyped starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. Not that he doesn't have good stuff, he just doesn't know how to use it. And now Rich Hill's being moved back, probably to next Wednesday. Caleb Smith is starting today against Philadelphia. Would you be shocked if the Marlins went into Philadelphia and swept? What would that say about a 60-game season? What would that say about the Phillies season? What would it say about the Marlins' chances? I've said on this show many times, the only 2 teams, maybe 3, of course, that I don't think can make the playoffs under any stretch of the imagination are the Giants, the Mariners, and the Orioles. Not in that order. But take those three out, and any of the other 27 teams can make the playoffs. And the Marlins were not named in the group of three. And they put it to the Phillies last night. Caleb Smith, last year, in and out of the lineup, hurt, had a 4.52 ERA. But through his first 9 starts last year, before getting hurt, he posted a 2.38 ERA, a 12.1 strikeout per 9 ratio, and only 2.4 walks per 9 through his first 9 starts. He just wasn't the same after he had a hip injury. Now, if he can, or has, regained the velocity from last year, then the Phillies are in trouble today. The Phillies, as we know, strike out a lot. Harper, who I talked about earlier in the week on the podcast, has historically been a great opening day player. Last night, 0 for. So if Caleb Smith, who is owned probably in less than half of the leagues, is available, he is certainly a good streamer today and a player that you want to look at, because next week, again, they play the Orioles. Alex Wood pitching today for the Dodgers, pitching against the Giants. Yeah, there's a theme to this show today, guys. Alex Wood, we know, had a horrendous year last year because he was hurt. 2 years ago, he was a Cy Young candidate. He's back in L.A. The Giants just don't have anybody. Opening night against L.A., of course, they lose last night 7-1. Opening night, they only had 8 hits, and they were all singles. Buster Posey, not there. Brandon Belt, not there. Evan Longoria, not there. So I'm looking for some good things out of Alex Wood today. And here's another one. Now, here's a kind of a stretch, but not really. But it's a chance you got to take, I think, because there's tremendous upside. I told you at 105 today, the Cubs play the Brewers. And Milwaukee is throwing out in Game 2 Corbin Burnes. Owned probably in less than 20% of leagues. He's coming off a horrendous 2019. However, he had a 12.9 K per 9 in that horrendous 2019. And he's getting another crack at the rotation since Brett Anderson is sidelined. He has some really intriguing stuff. He has a fastball that can top out in the upper 90s. He has a swing and miss slider. And maybe you want to take a wait-and-see approach on today. But I think you have to be early to go to the party. If you're going to get to the party, you got to get there early sometimes, or there are no seats left. And there's only one Corbin Burnes. And frankly, I think he's going to pitch well today. I still think hitters' timing is not up to where it ought to be. Remember, even though it got better in the summer games, they were scrimmaging their own pitchers. And their own pitchers aren't going out there headhunting. They aren't going out there thinking about, I want to hit somebody. They're going to throw so you can hit. They're just getting their work in. Now they're playing other teams. It's competitive. You're not going to get that meatball just sailing in the air to hit. The Cubs, the Brewers, it's going to be some great action. You expect a lot of runs, but today I expect some pitching. And last night, look at what the Cubs starter did. Shutout, 9-inning shutout against that Brewer team, and we know they can hit. An example of why hitting is not up with the pitching yet. So we'll see what Corbin Burnes can do today. The 25-year-old goes in the game against the Cubs. Against Yu Darvish. Now, I think this is an intriguing pitching matchup. I don't think there's going to be a lot of runs today. Darvish looked so good towards the end of last year, so bad at the beginning, but it's like he found something. Darvish going up against the Brewers, Corbin Burnes today, I think could be the pitching matchup of the day. Other good pitching matchups. Clevenger going against the Royals. Can't you just see a shutout in the making there? Lamet going against the Diamondbacks. Strasburg and Paxton, which I think is another charming pitching matchup. That's tonight's game at 7:15 from the nation's capital, Big Maple and Strasburg. That's the headliner. I think the Darvish-Burns matchup could be just as interesting and intriguing without the fanfare, without the attention. Robbie Ray going against San Diego today. Zach Wheeler against Miami. His first start with the Phillies. Castillo for the Reds today, to me, is chalk of the day. Castillo going against Detroit. I'd have to put Detroit in the worst third of offenses in the major leagues. Castillo at home, the only problem. But did you happen to see the bomb that C.J. Cron hit off of Sonny Gray last night? I mean, it was a no-doubter. A no-doubter. Lance McCullers Jr. goes against Seattle today. I love that matchup as well. And here's one to keep your eye on. Brady Singer, rookie pitcher. He's never pitched above Double-A. He's starting today for the Kansas City Royals. And I think it'll be interesting to see what Brady Singer brings to the table. Highly touted first-round draft pick out of 2018. And next week he's got a matchup against Detroit. Talk about going early to the party. If you are a riverboat gambler, go pick up Brady Singer. If he pitches well today against a very good Cleveland lineup, he will be one of the most sought-after free agents in all of fantasy baseball. I'm saying this 11 minutes into my show. Write it down. I would go pick up, on a whim, on a chance, Brady Singer today. Because if he pitches well against Cleveland, it's going to give him more confidence. This is his first outing. He's got the Tigers in the middle of next week. He is the one pitcher on Kansas City that I would be interested in fantasy this year. So let's take a look at some hitters. And I want to go to round the horn. Let's start at first base. Mitch Moreland, owned in probably less than 5% of fantasy leagues if you're in a 10 to 12 team league. But he's playing today against Alex Cobb in Baltimore against the Orioles. He put up a 372 on base average against right-handers last year. I know he's 35 years old, but to me, he is a streamer of the day. Yes, streamer of the day playing against the Orioles. At second base, little bit of a... I'm looking at players who are owned in less than 25% of leagues. Jonathan Scope against the Reds at Great American Ballpark. He has big-time power. I know Castillo has a great changeup, but I've not said Castillo's going to throw a shutout. And I think Scope could get a couple of hits today in Cincinnati. Another intriguing matchup is Matt Carpenter against Trevor Williams and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, why do I mention Matt Carpenter? We know that Matt Carpenter